Knees and toes.
Does shoulders have to do with anything?
Because of what you did to my bold prediction. Yes, I'm taking this too far, but I don't care. We're
The
going.
noise is great for those who are audio only.
What's up, everyone, and welcome into a special edition of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Today, we welcome in host of the Vancouver Warriors and Morning Shootaround podcast, Tino Fera. Tino, thanks for jumping on with us, and how's it going?
It's going good, man. I'm so excited to be on with you here. So let's get after it.
We will. We got you on for Warriors. I know we'll talk my last questions about the your two co-hosts over at Morning Shootaround, but we'll save that to the end. What is one word to describe the Warriors season with just 3 games left on the schedule?
Okay, I'm going to ask you for a little bit of permission to cheat a little bit. Can I give you a phrase instead of one word?
I got you on for anything, so this is all you. Whatever you want to do.
All right, I will say a breath of fresh air. And I mean that, like, you'll probably understand what I mean, considering you guys are in Buffalo and you guys are Sabres fans as well. To be a sports fan in Vancouver, we are a Canucks town, or a Canucks city, I guess I should say. It has oftentimes come with a lot of sadness over the years. It's funny, there's a radio host out here, and he has coined the term that he is the sad club commissioner. Buffalo, the Sabres are in the sad club, he says. The Canucks, we are very much so in the sad club. So, you know, to have a Warriors season where there was so much hype leading up to it in terms of like everything they did in the offseason, people were calling them contenders before the preseason even really got started. And for them to pretty well, to this point, meet the expectations, it's just been like a breath of fresh air to have something legitimately positive to continuously watch. So yeah, that's all I'm thinking right now with the season is it is very much so been a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think a bunch of people were talking about they're on the up and up last year. They got CDB and net, but they were just missing that offense. And Kurt went on multiple podcasts and just going, it's coming. And you see it right then and there, what they did in this offseason. We'll start out the front gate here. I mean, if it weren't for Brett Dobson having the record-setting year he's having, Keegan Ball would be flat out the MVP. And honestly, he still might end up winning that award. But he's set a new career high in assists. He's 6 back of setting a new career high in points. He's on pace for another 40-goal season, his 3rd straight. And he's always been that underrated star in this league. But this year, to me, he's put his name in the minds of lacrosse fans. Do you find... I should say, did he find another gear this year, or is it just more the talent that brought in that he can finally get some backup on offense?
I would say there's probably a little bit of both. He individually has been somebody that has talked about his fandom of Kobe Bryant. He's like read his books and stuff, and I think that you see a lot of that kind of Mamba mentality in him with the way that he trains away from the game and the way that he presents himself to the media. And then once he puts the uniform on and all the gear and everything, the way that he presents himself, like I think it was last year, he had that 4th quarter sock trick. He just kind of has that ability to do that on occasion. That being said, though, and this doesn't take anything away from what he's done, because like you said, he's probably gonna break these records that he has set himself. But the fact that he has these running mates now and this leadership behind the bench that also helps to put him in a position of success plays a factor. And he would probably be the first one to say that. Like if you ask Keegan Ball about Keegan Ball, he'll be the first to tell you about Curtis Dixon and Jesse King and the leadership that Kurt has provided and what Delbs does in between the pipes as well. So I think it very much so is a bit of both, but Keegan Ball deserves all the credit that he is now getting now that Vancouver is very much so a recognizable team.
So each offseason, Phil and I pick 3 bold predictions ahead of the NLL schedule for both the Bandits, but also the NLL League. One of mine was Jesse King would be MVP. Now, while he's still having a great season, he's tied for 23rd in points. His assist numbers just aren't there from what we've seen from when the league came back from COVID. Now, is this just also more of the guys on the field that have the ability to handle the ball as opposed to prior seasons? Or do you see something in his game that maybe he's either taken a step back or changed his role in this offense?
I don't think it's necessary. I think the changing of role would be a better way to describe it, in my opinion, because I don't think that he's necessarily like taken a step back. I think it's been more so like a parallel step, because somebody like myself who, like, I'm lucky enough to be around the team probably on a more common basis than fans in Vancouver, like being able to see the stuff he's doing in warm-ups and hearing the way that other people within the organization talk about him, he is very much so embraced this leadership and teacher role. Like, you look over what he was able to accomplish in Calgary and to his like this point in his career, and he's put up some insane numbers. But you come to Vancouver, and while some of the cavalry that is in Vancouver now is similar to what it was in Calgary, you also have guys on his side of the floor like Adam Charlambides and Marcus Clarich, who are younger guys that are coming up and coming into their own. And the chemistry that's been built within, like, those three guys specifically, but also just with whoever it is that Jesse King is going on the floor with, like, you're seeing that stuff play out in both practices, pregame, warm-ups, whatever. And then as well, just how excited Jesse King is when anybody else scores a goal. Like, I don't know if I've seen anybody, certainly on this team, but very few within the league, celebrate harder for teammate goals than Jesse King does. And I think that says a lot about his role and his character as a person.
So a guy you just mentioned there, Marcus Clarich, he's taken that next step that I feel a lot of people thought he would be and were looking for after seeing what he did out the front door towards the end of last year. Now, most NLL teams, the majority of their players are first-round picks or early second-round picks. For Vancouver, for example, they got 18 players under contract that were taken in the first 20 picks. Clarich was taken 32nd overall in 2022. How big is it for teams to get those later draft picks like Clarich to develop into critical roles for teams across the league, including Vancouver?
It's crucial. Like, I think the later round picks, are where, regardless of sport, the later round picks is where a team will win or lose the draft. Like, whatever the last place team is, or I mean, in this case, we'll say Toronto, like, whichever the team is that has the first round, or like the first overall pick, or the first few picks in recent memory here, you're supposed to knock that pick out of the park. Like, if you don't have a good pick in that case, it's been a colossal failure. I think as things get towards the second and third round and so on, when you're able to find those hidden gems, that's where you can put a lot of the praise on your scouts throughout North America or wherever they're catching these junior age players coming out of. And that is what solidifies your team for the foreseeable future. You know what I mean? Like, so Marcus Clarich, and it's funny, he's said, actually on the Warriors podcast, he said to me before that he has kind of felt like he's been having a frustrating season. Like, he hasn't necessarily put up the numbers that he individually has expected of himself, but I still think you're seeing this development of him from, I mean, even from last year to this year, and certainly from the prior year, a couple of years ago to this year. Like, you're seeing him come into his own as a legitimate star on this team and in this league. And yeah, I think that the later round picks like Marcus Clarich, they completely change the dynamic of your team as the years go on.
Now, a guy that might not be putting up those big numbers, just 12 points in 15 games, but in my opinion has been a big piece and a big reason why this offense has been successful, is Ryan Sheridan. I mean, the team has been rolling out six forwards a lot of the season, and I feel like ever since the trade deadline, his role or his performance on the field has just stepped up even further. How important is it for a team to have guys that buy into the system where their role might not be what it had been their entire life? The majority of these players, I should say all of these players in the NLL, went from the number one or two on their teams to, 3 or 4 or 5 on this team and have to get a new role through their head of, if I'm going to make it, I got to start playing this role. I mean, just covering the Bandits for as long as we have, we kind of know that if you have too many of the same players, system ain't going to work. How have you seen, or I guess, do you feel, I'll rephrase the question here. How important is it for a team to have those type of players buy into those type of roles?
It is, I don't want to say it's the most important thing, but it's certainly up there in that category. Like, Kurt, talking about Ryan Sheridan specifically, has praised his ability to simply get out of the way. And I don't think that should be received as him quite literally going and standing on the half wall and vacating the entire offense. but his ability, like he's a big athletic guy. His ability to create space by taking defenders away is what Kurt is talking about in that case. And your point about these guys being the guy wherever it was that they came from before their NFL career, that is Ryan Sheridan to a T. In his junior days in Nanaimo, he was the man. Like he was by far the guy, not just on his junior team, but like in the league. He was a guy that opposing coaches were consistently scouting for. I remember the one game specifically, I do a lot of work with the Poco Saints out here in BC in the summer ball months. And I remember one of their so they're coached by the Cornwall brothers, Jeff and Travis. And Travis came up to me one time after a game against Nanaimo where Nanaimo kind of smoked Poco at the time. And he was like, yeah, we couldn't handle Sheridan. Like we just let Sheridan go. And I've always praised athletes, again, regardless of what sport, for their ability to adapt, because like you said, it's not a super easy thing to do. Like if somebody goes from being the guy and then now all of a sudden they're an enforcer, or they have to come to terms with, now I'm gonna have to drop the gloves on occasion, that's a super hard thing to do just mentally, not even in the physical aspect of that. So for Ryan Sheridan to come into really his first season in Vancouver, because he missed the entirety of last year with an injury, to come into his first season with pretty well a new team and play a role that he wasn't all that familiar with before, it deserves a ton of credit.
Sorry, I got a storm rolling through, and I got a big chicken dog between my legs, so I'm multitasking here. The offense currently puts up the fewest shots in the league, averaging just over 46 a game. But according to Graham Parrow, he put out a nice stat the other day on X. They have the highest shooting percentage across the league. It's 15 games in, so that's a pretty big sample size. How big of an advantage is it to this team about to head into the playoffs when defenses get tougher and the number of offensive shifts drop down? How important is it for, they might not be getting the number of shots in a game, but the ones that they do are quality shots?
It's massive. And if you've heard any Kurt Malowski post-game interview after a loss specifically, almost always the first question that he'll get is like, just tell us your thoughts on the game. And his first answer, or if not his first, like his first three answers, he talks about the amount of shots that they missed the net. Right. So it's very obviously a talking point for them consistently at practice and at whatever morning shoot-arounds before games. Like it doesn't really matter. So I think you would probably see that trend throughout a Kurt Malowski team in general, even go back to his time in Calgary. He is a very methodical coach. Like nothing that he says is without reason. No drill that he sets in place or any of his coaching staff sets in place doesn't have a purpose. And it's so clear to see that shot total doesn't necessarily matter the most. It's as long as they're hitting their shots that's going to be the biggest factor for them.
Last one in terms of the offense, who to you is an X factor for this offense this season? Either you're expecting them to be that X factor through the playoffs or has been that X factor through 15 games.
I feel like people are going to probably get mad at me for like biased because he's a co-host on a show that I co-host. But I would say Marcus Clarich. Like, I think that he is a guy that gets kind of lost on the radar a little bit from opposing defenses on occasion. And man, like as somebody who has watched a ton of Warriors lacrosse over their tenure here, and especially Marcus Clarich lacrosse, even going back to his days in Burnaby in Junior A out here, that guy's toe drag I would put up against almost anybody else's in the league. Like he's so, I don't know, like nimble, I guess you could say, with how he's able to move swiftly. And I feel like this goes to the point from before when you have the pieces that Vancouver has on their offense. Like when you're playing on the same side as Jesse King, he is going to be the number one scout that teams are looking at on that side of the floor. And then on the other side, obviously you have Curtis Dixon and Keegan Ball. It's super easy for somebody like Adam Charlambides or for Marcus Clarich to kind of get lost a little bit farther down the depth chart in terms of opposing teams scouting on them. And if you give them an opportunity to get hot, like they're going to take advantage of it. Marcus Clarich, if you're going to give him, you don't even have to give him an open lane to the goal. If it's like a one-on-one isolation situation that he likes, chances are he's going to pull out that toe drag and try to get underneath. So I think that if given the opportunity, which I'm pretty sure he will be given opportunities, Marcus Claridge could very much so be an X factor.
That's a perfect transition. You can tell you're a podcaster because you are the host of the Vancouver Warriors podcast. A couple questions here. How did that all come about? And secondly, do you think you've seen the ways it's been beneficial to this team, connecting them to the fan base? Because besides you guys, I think only Toronto really has a podcast based around their team.
Well, there's the Dane and Josh show as well.
That's true, but that's so inconsistent. We got to talk to them where it's like maybe you get a handful of episodes per season. We need like a consistent schedule out of those guys.
Yeah, true that. I would say like in terms of connecting with the fans a little bit, like I certainly hope that's what's happening. That was definitely one of the goals when this whole thing was brought about originally. So I think just with the clips, like I will say full credit goes to the social team with the Warriors. Like they're the ones that do the editing of it. Like I put the notes together and I ask the questions. They're the ones that then make everything look as good as it does. And they're the ones that pump everything out. So, I think they've done a really good job of making this accessible. And I think both Marcus and Owen Grant have done a really good job of making themselves accessible as well, because, we talk in sports about wanting to see the personalities of these athletes. Like we haven't necessarily seen that all that much in lacrosse. And I think that these two guys are doing a really good job of that. In terms of how it came about, like how do I keep this somewhat compact? Like I will say probably to the detriment of my career, I've been so tunnel vision on wanting to work with the Warriors and specifically in lacrosse. And I understand that, there are other sports that have more exposure and I could probably have an easier job of making a legitimate living doing other sports or whatever. But I just find myself personally as somebody who has played lacrosse my entire life. I was a fan of the Vancouver Ravens when I was a kid. My dad got us season tickets to the Vancouver Stealth when they were here, and I was at like the very first ever home game of the Warriors. Like I am so gung-ho about this team having success in British Columbia. And like it's funny, I've been in that arena interviewing for jobs probably like 4 times. And every single one wound out like I was getting callbacks, and I was like in constant, and I still like wound up getting none of them. And then this got brought, kind of plopped on my desk, the idea of this, ironically, when I was involved in pitching them on something else. And they were like, actually, no, we're not going to do that. But we have this other idea that we think you'd be great for. And then we just started kind of workshopping it from there. So, again, like I would give credit to, I would say like Tyson Geik and Dave Sheldon and a lot of the other people involved in the Warriors that put a lot of trust in me. And I'm just so thankful to be getting an opportunity with the team, especially in such an exciting time within the organization like this.
We'll flip to the defensive side of the ball here. One of the first guys that came over to join Kurt in Vancouver last year was Jeff Cornwall. And Buffalo fans might not like that name, but I'm asking the question. Where do you think his game has stood out in a room with so many future Hall of Famers in it?
He's so calm on the floor, man. Like I know in the past couple of years, he's battled injury a little bit, and you can definitely see that. Like I don't know if he's necessarily going to sprint the floor like he did in that game against Buffalo that everybody is still thinking about. But he is one of those, like I certainly didn't coin this term, but Delbs has used the phrase boat anchor for describing defenders before. And I would say that Jeff Cornwall is kind of in that category a little bit. And he's talking about guys that aren't necessarily the fastest. They don't have the quickest feet, but they are physically sound, positionally sound, and once you engage with them, you wind up slowing down to their speed. And Jeff Cornwall, like, yes, he can play with some quick feet when needed, but I think when he's at his best, it is when he is able to slow down any forward to his pace. And yeah, I think that he is at his best just when he's playing in that exact system, and I think he's an incredibly underrated piece of this Vancouver defense.
Yeah, speaking of underrated, a guy that I don't think, at least on the East Coast here, gets enough attention on for how actually dominant he is Reed Bowering. I mean, he leads the team in loose balls, block shots, tied for third in caused turnovers. But for those that are unfamiliar with his game for one reason or another, just explain how good he is, not just for Vancouver, but across the entire league.
Yeah, you know what? I would say like bigger than just the entire league. I would say across the entire sport. If like for anybody that is a little less familiar with Reed Bowering, he grew up playing minor lacrosse as a forward, and then when he got to junior, Pat Coyle was his coach. Pat Coyle was his coach pretty much all the way through minor lacrosse as well. Once he got to junior, Pat got him to start playing defense, and it was maybe like a bit of a transition period for him. But I mean, by his final year of junior lacrosse in Coquitlam, he winds up as the captain. He's arguably their best defender, certainly their best piece in transition. And then he goes over to Drexel University to play his college ball, and he sets all these offensive records. Like you go and look over at some of the numbers that he has at Drexel, and you're like, this guy plays defense in the best box lacrosse league in the world. That's insane. And then now over into the NLL, I think he just exploded onto the scene after he got drafted. Because in Vancouver at the time, we didn't really have. I say we loosely. I understand that's kind of cringy to some people. But like Vancouver had never really seen transition like that before on our team. Like at the time we had Justin Salt, who had like long since retired from the NLL. And he was it for transition. That was it. And then Reed comes in, this young guy, can run forever, has the biggest calves you'll ever see in your life, and then almost puts up 20 in his rookie season. And then as things progressed, the next couple of years, like I think he sort of maybe struggled a little bit in that defensive role. Owen Grant comes in, and some more transition pieces come in, and Reed Bowering kind of is like a little bit less in transition. He's more so becoming like a stay-at-home defender that'll get the ball to center kind of thing. But I think in the recent off seasons, he's really worked on becoming an all-around player. And he's like this year specifically has gotten some really tough matchups defensively, has looked outstanding. He is one of the best loose ball guys in the entire league. Owen Grant has talked to me before about how, Reed will go into a pile that nobody else should be coming out of that pile with the ball, and Reed will just like jog his way out of it, no problem. So I think you're seeing, and then the offensive ability obviously has always been there. Like he's been playing out the O-gate on occasion this year when Vancouver has needed a switch up. So he's being used as a shutdown guy, a transition threat, and then also he's going to be open out the O-gate too if you need him to. So he has really become that triple threat for Vancouver. And I mean, talk about guys that can be an X factor. Like he could very well be an X factor for this team too.
Another guy that I feel has changed up his game a bit this season is Matty Beers. And I talked to Brad Challoner a few weeks back, and he's still got a stat in his back pocket that he's been waiting all year to say, but he can't do it yet because his penalty minutes are down at 4 in 13 games. That would be the lowest since 2023 when he had 22. Now, have you seen something in his game that is flipped, or do you think it's just similar to like the Steve Priolas or Paul Dawson's here at Buffalo, where the team's just got younger guys that can play that role now where he doesn't have to?
That's that's a really good question, because it's like the intensity of Matt Beers has not gone anywhere. Like if you want to get in that guy's face, like he will go right back at you every single time. But I think almost similar to the Jesse King conversation we were having earlier is that he has very much so, and he's never not been a leader, but he is very much so become like I guess like father figure sort of. I mean, there's a few of them on the defense really now that I think about it, but he has sort of become like a father figure on that back end of like not necessarily a step backwards, but a step parallel to the side of, like, hey, what do we need to work on? Like I'm somebody that can teach you if there's something specific that we need to work on. So, maybe I guess maybe there is a little bit of calmness that is coming with his older age. I guess if he hears that, he might beat me up for saying older age. But yeah, I just think it's another one of those cases of taking maybe a step to the side in a different role than a step backwards. But I know the stat you're talking about with Brad. I all year I've been wondering the same thing. Like, are we gonna hear it? And I think at this point, I think we might have to wait another season.
Might have to put it in the the file cabinet and wait till next year for that one. But who on the back end is not getting enough attention this season that at year's end, or even at the end of the playoffs, whenever that ends, people can shake their heads and just go, why didn't we give this guy enough attention through the entire season?
Oh man, that's like a really hard question, because much like the offense, there are so many studs out the back end. And I know this guy, this also feels like a bit of a cop-out answer, because he's probably going to be a contender for Defender of the Year, at least in my opinion. But I don't think Ryan Dilks gets enough credit, which just feels outrageous to say. I just think
there's too many good players out there that you run out of time to name them all.
it doesn't matter with Ryan Dilks what side of the floor. This is, I hope I'm not like name dropping too much here, but like one of the benefits that I've had of being able to be around a lot of these players as much as I am is like I have these conversations with guys and they share with me like insights about different players and stuff. And something that Matt Beers brought up when we had him on Morning Shootaround last year was, you can really, like, a defender can really be exposed if they play on their wrong side of the floor. Like, you have to be a really sound defender in every aspect of that term to play on your wrong side of the floor. And Ryan Dilks can play anywhere. It doesn't matter. And he's still going to thrive. Like, if Lyle Thompson is going to be the lockdown guy for a game, he will go and play on that side of the floor. Or if it comes to the other side and now Jeff Teat needs somebody to lock him down, Ryan Dilks is going to be the first option for that. It doesn't matter whether he's playing on a lefty or a righty. Like, and even with not even talking about positionally or how physically sound he is, I swear to God, man, watch how many times he picks off a pass where the trajectory starts from 3 feet away from him. Like he usually plays high on the penalty kill, and whoever the shooter is will try to skip high to low and go to the opposing crease. That pass is starting like less than a stick's length away, and Dilks will still get a stick up in time and intercept it or get a deflection on it, which is way harder than I think people realize. Like, I wish I could toss something at you through the screen and just like watch you like kind of try to get out of it. Like, it's way harder than people think. So, yeah, it feels a little ridiculous to say that Ryan Dilks doesn't get the credit that he deserves, but I do feel like some of the stuff that he does gets overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, that sometimes happens when you're just that good. He makes the very difficult plays look just super easy, and people take that for granted. But another person that I think a bunch of people take for granted is Christian Del Bianco. I mean, I made the joke last year when they made that trade, you bring in a goalie and the entire offense is fixed. But he is one of the best goalies to ever play this game, and he's not even 30 years old. I could go on and on about the numbers and the impact he adds to the transition game and all that kind of stuff. But you play the game, you've played it your entire life. How impactful can it be for the guys in front of him that just see how stinking relaxed he is every single time? Like, he could have a bad quarter and it's like nothing happened. Like, it just goes off his back. Like, how important is it, and how much does that trickle out to the rest of the guys on the field that just see a goalie that maybe lets in like 3 or 4 and then just locks it down, and it's like he doesn't even care. He's focused on the next one.
Yeah, well, the confidence is contagious. And when you are afforded the opportunity to maybe make a mistake, obviously mistakes you want to limit as much as possible. But when you have the opportunity to make a mistake and it doesn't wind up being a game-breaking mistake because you have arguably the best goalie, if not a top 2 goalie in the league, in between the pipes there for you, it changes the entire game for you. And then as well, like, if there is a mistake to be had with somebody like Christian Del Bianco, it's likely because you have a defender going up the floor to cheat for transition, right? But when that doesn't turn into a turnover and Delbs is able to get possession and launch it up the floor, now your offense is rolling and you're pretty well up the floor with, like 27 seconds still on the clock? And that's assuming that it's not a transition break or a 2-on-1, like whatever. So I think that any Kurt Malowski built team is built from the goaltender out, and that continued as a theme once he took over Vancouver here. I mean, I know he didn't have Delbs right off the bat, but you could see him putting together the pieces on the defensive end, just getting these like big hulking defenders that are also able to move. and that he would also consider good people as well. That's obviously a big thing with Kurt when he puts his teams together. And then he started to put together the offense. And then when an opportunity came to get somebody like Delbs, like he took the opportunity as soon as it was possible. And he had to give up, like he gave up Braden Lady as one of the pieces to be able to go and get Delbs. And if you've ever heard Kurt talk about Braden Lady, the person and the defender, like, you know how highly he thinks of that kid. So, you pay a lot to get somebody like Delbs, but I think from what we've seen since he's been here, what Vancouver's done this year and what they're likely or slotted to do for the foreseeable future, I think that's a price that Kurt would probably pay over again.
You are a fantastic broadcaster that's broadcasted lacrosse games all different levels across the U.S. and Canada. So two-part question here. Doing play-by-play is not easy. It's not something I could ever do. It's not something I ever want to do. Not many people can do it. But what made you want to get into that? And then secondly, what is something about calling a game that might seem easy to the viewer at home, but is actually incredibly difficult there and in live in person?
I think I have a good answer for the second part of that. So I'll start with the first. Sorry, remind me what the first. I know I have it in front of me.
How did you get into it?
How did I get into it? Okay, that. Honestly, man, like, it came from frustration of me working these like mindless jobs that I just hated. Like, I was a super average student in high school. I've been a sports fan my entire life, like diehard Canucks fan, diehard hockey fan in general. Obviously, like, played lacrosse my entire life, like made it all, like, I finished out my junior career and then just kind of started playing men's league pretty well right away. But all through high school, like, I've told stories like this before. Like, I used to fall asleep. I'm one of those people that, like, I used to fall asleep like with the TV on, and I would always fall asleep watching our TSN highlight shows out here. And these two guys, Jay Onright and Dan O'Toole, they were the hosts of, like, the late night highlight show on TSN. They're both, like, so funny, and you could tell they like took the job. I always say this about myself is, like, I take the job seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. I think I very much so got that from them and just idolizing those guys. And I just found myself working these jobs. Like, I worked at a golf course, and then I worked at a car parts store. I was, like, delivering parts. I delivered pizzas, like, all these places where I'm listening to talk radio all day, every day. And I'm like, man, like, it can't be impossible to get into that field. Like, how in the world do I do that? So finally, like, with some, I'm sure I was annoying my friend. I know I was annoying my friends by complaining about these stupid jobs and how I wanted to be a broadcaster. And then they were finally like, would you just shut up and do it? Go to school. So finally, like, I bit the bullet. I've had a super, my now wife, at the time girlfriend, has been super supportive through the entire time, because obviously, like, you kind of take a pay cut to when you start out this career. And she's been just, like, unwavering and super supportive with me pursuing this over the years. And yeah, I've been really lucky to get these opportunities, meeting some incredible people that have been super open with giving me advice and helping me to get opportunities, introducing me to people. And then, yeah, I think that people see, like, if I can, like, toot my own horn a little bit, I think that people see that I'm somebody that I'm willing to do a ton of work for not a lot of money, for the ability to show what my work ethic is and what my ability is. So I'm, like I said earlier, I'm super grateful to be getting these opportunities. And then in terms of something that people don't realize is maybe harder than they would think, I found very quickly, my first ever time doing play-by-play, my first ever time, like, on the radio or hosting any show or anything, I found that they didn't ever teach me or bring up in school how to start and how to end a broadcast. And I think that is something that goes super overlooked. So, like, when it's time to wrap things up, well, like, how do I get in all these, like, ad reads, or how do I close out a show? So I think, like, my first ever time doing that, I sat there in silence for 10 seconds and then just hit the mute button. I was like, well, I sure hope nobody heard that. So I have made a big point to, if I hear somebody say something as, like, that could be a good closer, like, I'll make a mental note of that and write it down and be like, oh, I wonder if I could, like, rework that in a way that where it becomes my own. Like, I would say, if there's anybody getting into broadcasting, put some thought into how you are going to start and how you are going to finish a broadcast, because if you close out a call or a broadcast and it feels awkward, people are going to remember that it felt a little awkward when you turn the mic off.
I think that's great advice. Doing this for 5 years, nothing broadcast, but I'm like, okay, I got to figure out my outro. So yeah, people that don't think about that kind of stuff at home, I can see your point of it on a much smaller scale. But Bandits versus Warriors, Saturday night in Buffalo, game 2 of the season series. Vancouver took game 1, 12-10. And besides a 4-minute stretch there in the second quarter, I personally thought Vancouver dominated it. I thought, based on Steve Dietrich's comments, we disagree on that one. But if you were to write a headline for this upcoming game, what would it be and why?
I would call it Chapter 3, and I would call it that in the sort of ominous sense that last year when I can't remember, did Buffalo play Vancouver twice in the regular season or once?
I think it was just once.
Okay, it was just once.
And because I remember I was there, and Ian McKay made the great line of, "I wish Christian would have stayed on the couch one more week."
That's right. Right. So it was right after Delbs came to Vancouver, and then the Warriors go to Banditland, and it came down to like that last second. Delbs kind of made a bit of a lucky save. Like if you watch it back, Dane Smith had him beat. Like he's joked about that before. And then ironically, I'm pretty sure the game ended because Ryan Dilks intercepted or tipped a pass at the last second, and then he just kind of tossed it down the floor. Nice. That was a little bit of foreshadowing, I guess. It all works out. I guess I would call it Chapter 3 because you had that window of positivity for Vancouver in the regular season, and you could really see what Delbs brings to this team in helping them to get a win away from home in a really hostile Banditland. And then the two come together again for a playoff series where for a stint in game 1 of round 2 between Vancouver and Buffalo, Bandits were starting to embarrass Vancouver a little bit. And you had Nanticoke, who seemed to have Delbs' number and scored like a real weird one. Delbs gets pulled, comes back, was super strong after that. And then game 2 back in Vancouver, again, a really back and forth game. Like I was there for that one up in press row, and like there was a point in the fourth quarter. I think actually Claridge scored. I was kind of thinking like they could actually do this. Like we could, or the team could force a game 3. And of course, we all know what happened from there. Buffalo goes to win their 3rd straight. Now in present day, you have a Buffalo team that probably hasn't had the season that they would have hoped to, although playing way better all of a sudden. And I would say Buffalo is very much so back. And I mean, this is a big game for them. Like I heard you guys on your most recent episode talking about how big this game could be for them to potentially clinch a playoff spot if they get some help as well. And I would say if there is a hope and a belief in Buffalo clinching a home playoff game in the first round, I would consider this a must-win for that group. So I think that there are kind of tales all throughout this portion of what is building to be a pretty cool rivalry. And yeah, I guess I would give it the title of Chapter 3.
What area of Vancouver's game do you believe they have the edge over the Bandits in?
Right now, I would say offense, because I think, and like you guys have talked about this before, like the offense hasn't exactly been clicking the way you would expect with Buffalo. I think that's
55 minutes to turn it on.
Exactly. And I think, that kind of fits the theme of their entire season to this point. Like, yes, they're racking up some wins now, but I think it's been almost the opposite for Vancouver. In the early goings of the season, the talk out here and in the media in general was, the Warriors' power play is electric. Their shorthanded stuff and transition is working real well. Their 5-on-5 isn't really clicking, and that's kind of alarming. And now, since I would say about like halfway through the season to this point, their 5-on-5 offense has been great. And it's actually been their power play that I wouldn't say like has let them down, but it's sort of just like flip-flopped a little bit, where they're finding moderately less success on the power play and more success on their 5-on-5. And Buffalo, on the other hand, while they have the ability, in my opinion, to go off at any point, and it feels weird to say at all that their offense might be like a down point considering the guys that they have out there. I would just say, like, right now at this point, Vancouver's offense is just clicking a little bit better than Buffalo's. And like, I think you had a really good point on your guys' latest episode talking about the offense that should be put out for Buffalo now should be the forward group that you're going to put out in the playoffs to give them an opportunity to gel. Now that you got Joey Rez there and guys are figuring out how to work with each other in tandem, I think that Buffalo could very much so find their footing. But just in this point in time, I would just give the slight edge to Vancouver.
Which battle are you going to be looking most forward to in this matchup? Is it the goaltending battle? Is it the Snoo versus Ball? Something else? What's going to catch your eye when you're watching this game on Saturday?
I would say, a couple things. I would say, depending on the health of Connor Farrell, I'm really interested to see how he and Max Adler do against each other again. I think that's a really interesting battle, and also out here in Vancouver, like Kurt always says, don't mess with a winning lineup. Like if Connor Farrell is healthy, do you put him back in, or are you content with how things could go otherwise? I mean, that you could debate that forever. But I will say the Delbs versus Vino kind of matchup is the one, another probably easy answer, but one that I'll be watching a lot because Matt Vince is playing like Matt Vince right now, which is to the rest of the league is like devastating to see. And Delbs is Delbs, you know what I mean? So, I think you're going to see two of the best in the league going at it. And I think that this could very much so be a low scoring game, which for me personally, those are the best types of lacrosse games.
I like them as long as they're close. Like
exactly.
We don't
yeah.
To see like an 8-3 game or something along those lines.
Agreed.
But yeah, just two more for you here. For the Warriors to get the win, this needs to happen. What needs to happen?
For the Warriors to get the win, you cannot allow. I feel like I'm just full of easy answers here. You can't allow Dane and Josh to be Dane and Josh. I think that, the offense is going to go for Buffalo where those two are going to take them. And again, fits the theme that those two maybe haven't necessarily been playing to their level that we've seen them in past years. Also, they've played a crazy ton of lacrosse over the last 3 or 4 years. It's just outrageous going to summer ball as well. But if Ryan Dilks and Brett Mitsky and Matt Beers can contain those two, I think they're going to have, Vancouver is going to have a pretty good chance, because then at that point, you're being Buffalo in this case, you are relying on your depth pieces to take over a game. And in that case, I would say the depth of Vancouver's defense can go punch for punch with the depth of Buffalo's offense. And that's not at all to discredit any of those depth guys for Buffalo, but when you have Nanakoke and you have Buchanan and now you have Joey Rez and so on and so on, I think that personally, I'm probably going to put Vancouver's defense against those guys and this is going to make me just sound so arrogant. And I don't mean it that way at all, but I would just feel confident in my team in that case, assuming that the limitation of Dane and Josh is also going how they game plan for.
Yeah, we've went over it, how deep their defensive core is. When you don't even name a Matt Beers or Nolan Grant or something like that, you're naming 4 or 5 guys before you even get to those. But my last question, and it's similar to how I always do it, but I'm twisting it a bit because I love your morning Shootaround podcast, so I'm putting you in it. So here's how it goes. You get a chance to win $1 million. You have 2 options, and in both, you have to rely on your co-host on Morning Shootaround. Your options: Christian has to spell a word of Tyler's choosing, or Tyler has to score a penalty shot on Christian. Which one are you going with?
Oh my God. Oh, that is such a funny question. So I will say, aside from that one episode, that one clip where Delbs tried to spell chauffeur and started it with SH, I will say I haven't actually heard him try to spell anything before or since then. So he could be a complete sandbagger, but I kind of don't think he is. I feel like I have to go with Tyler scoring on Del. They've been teammates. Not at the moment, but they've been teammates for half of their lives, and they're best friends. And yeah, I would have to think that the odds of Delbs, or the odds of Tyler getting 1 out of 10 at least on Delbs, is probably greater depending on the word. But I'm gonna tell both of them that you asked this question and just see what their response is.
I guess my other question is, if they know that if you got a chance at $1 million here, are they both just tanking it on you though?
Ooh,
Or are they good enough friends to be like, okay, let's try this to get them $1 million?
No, they're probably going to tank just for the bit. I feel like that's something that Delbs would love to do. I don't know. Tyler's a businessman, so he might he might try to cut me a deal beforehand. But yeah, no, Delbs for sure is throwing that competition to knock me down a peg.
That's very fair. But thank you for joining us on the Buffalo Sports Collective. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you and maybe anything else you want to plug, like the podcast?
Yeah, sure, man. So if anybody wants to find me, like I'm probably the most active on Instagram, I guess Twitter as well. On Instagram, I'm at Tino Fera. I'm at Feratino on Twitter. Mostly it's like promotional stuff or things that my wife tags me in if you follow me on Instagram. In terms of like things I've got going on, unfortunately, like Morning Shootaround, like it's so weird. We haven't done an episode in forever and we have not canceled it by any means, but schedules of those two guys specifically, I mean, like they're pro athletes. They both run their own businesses as well away from the game. It is like just pretty crazy to lock everybody in at the same time, and the recording times sometimes we're going to like 10 p.m. and then everybody's got to be up at 4 or 5 the next morning for work. So I see all the DMs from people asking like, when is it coming back? I just don't have an answer for you right now. The Vancouver Warriors podcast that comes out weekly. We have another one coming out later on this week as well. That'll just be between myself and Marcus Clarich and Owen Grant. People can see those on YouTube, clips on Instagram or on Spotify, wherever you hear your podcast as well. And yeah, man, I'm super grateful that you reached out to me. Like I said to you off air, I've become a huge fan of this show since you reached out to me, going back and listening to a bunch of old episodes. So I think you guys do an awesome job, and I was really happy to be able to talk with you.
Just ignore like the first year or two until we were like, figuring stuff
oh,
out.
now I know what I'm going to go listen to.
That stuff you don't want to listen to. I don't even listen to that stuff anymore. But that's all I got for you. Thanks again for jumping on with us, and continued success with everything you got going on.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
We will be back Friday with our normal episode to preview Bandits versus Warriors. We'll talk to you all then.